What is up, you guys, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Fit Women's Weekly podcast. Listen, if you are passionate about learning about the real truths of fitness, nutrition, and a healthy lifestyle, then you have come to the right podcast. I'm Kendall, and over the course of my 15 plus years as a personal trainer, a kettlebell coach, a nutritionalist, I've been given the title of Real Trainer for sharing my no-nonsense approach to women hitting their body and their fitness goals, as well as sharing my own struggles. I'm not perfect. I'm learning every single day and battling with my own demons that we all have to battle with when it comes to life, health, and more. I hope that you love what you hear today and you come back for either future episodes or you check out the over 490 previous episodes that I have already recorded. Yeah, that's a lot of content. So if you want to get to know me even more, you can head over to fitwomensweekly.com, learn more about what I do on a day-to-day basis with my online training studio, Fit Women's Weekly Live. But today, we are going to talk about everything that you didn't know that you wanted to know about kettlebell swings. So we're going to go deep into kettlebell training today, specifically talking about the most important exercise that if you are going to get into kettlebells, what do you need to learn? The number one movement is the kettlebell swing. We're going to talk about what is the kettlebell swing, what is it not, why should everybody learn to do it. We're going to talk about form. We're going to talk about common mistakes. We're going to talk about Russian swings versus American swings, different swing variations. Y'all, this is the all-encompassing swing podcast. So sit back or don't sit back. Maybe you're out on a run. Maybe you're swinging some kettlebells. We want to make sure that you're doing it right. So first things first, the kettlebell swing is a dynamic hip hinge exercise that is efficient at building strength, power, and endurance. That's the greatest thing about kettlebells is that it truly is an all-in-one movement where you can build power and strength, but also knock out your cardio. Because if you are one of those people that are like, oh, I hate running, I hate biking, y'all, I hate biking too, but you think, oh, how am I supposed to get my cardio in? Maybe all you're missing are some kettlebell movements. So what does science actually have to say about the effectiveness of swings? I'm glad that you've asked, so let's talk about it. So kettlebell swings are super efficient at building muscle, and in 2013, the American Council on Exercise, also known as ACE, studied the benefits. So for young adults, completed 1 hour of kettlebell training sessions twice per week. So we're talking about 2 hours of kettlebells. And after 8 weeks, they experienced gains in their leg and core strength, which makes perfect sense because kettlebells, because they are off center, the center of the kettlebell, the center of gravity, isn't in the middle where you hold the weight, right? Like a dumbbell or a barbell, which means you have to recruit more core stabilizer muscles to keep up with that kettlebell. So you're going to get improvements not only in the muscles that you think that you're targeting, but also in muscles that you don't realize that you're having to work so hard, such as the core. Another study found that kettlebell training helped older women with age-related muscle loss. And since this podcast is all about women's fitness, that's pretty freaking cool. Women had better back and hand grip strength and increased lung function. As we get older, we have this idea that we're going to lose our muscle mass, but kettlebells have been proven to help with that while also helping with our back strength. We don't want to pull our backs out. You know, I have pulled my back out dozens of times, not in the last decade, but since I was from 15 to 25, and that is not something I ever want to go through again. And I honestly can turn to kettlebells for one of the reasons that I don't have the back problems that I used to have. And now as far as cardio fitness is concerned, a full body movement of swings can get your heart pumping, which obviously helps your cardio or your aerobic fitness. And in that same 2013 study that I talked about a second ago, kettlebells help participants boost their aerobic capacity by 13.8%. And that was in over just 8 weeks. Think about if you were consistent with that week after week after week, what that can do for your cardio health. So cardio health, talking is sometimes very hard. So muscles, yes. Cardio, yes. And fat burning, yes, yes, yes. In the last study, I promised that we're going to move on. A 2010 study on men and women found that 20 minutes, not very long at all, you guys, of kettlebell swings can burn roughly 400 calories. That's 20 calories per minute, which if you have been running for a long time, you typically with running burn around 10 calories per minute. So you're getting more bang for your buck, right? Which means you can shorten up your workout. So if trying to knock out your workout so that you can get on with your day is important and you don't want to work out for an hour at a chunk, then kettlebells might be the way to go. You can knock out an awesome workout in 20 minutes where you're burning some serious calories, you are building some serious muscle, you are also improving your overall cardiovascular health. I'm talking about super efficient, right? So now that we know the whys, let's talk about the hows to complete the proper swing. So when it's done right, kettlebells are safe because a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, is this going to be bad for my back? I have back issues. As long as you're working with a professional that is going to help you perfect your form, kettlebells can be super safe. Just like I said, I have battled with back issues for most of my life, over half of my life. When I was 15, I was diagnosed with 2 herniated discs that plagued me for years. And I'm not going to lie, I still feel my back. I still wake up every morning realizing that I have a back. My dream is to one day be able to hop out of bed and go, I feel great. But because of kettlebells, I no longer have the limitations or the fears that I used to, where I was so scared that if I bent over to pick up something wrong, that it would go out, or just in day-to-day movements, I was hindered in how I moved. Like just walking or running would cause me to have back issues. And people actually told me I should not run again. You guys, I just ran 10 miles this morning. So just some food for thought. But when kettlebells are done right, these are the muscles that you're going to be really targeting. Your shoulders, your delts, if you're watching YouTube, boom. Forearms, grip strength is crazy. You will go to knock out a big old set of swings, and the first thing that you will feel are those forearms, and they will get rock hard. Your abs, we already talked about this. Your back, specifically your traps, your rhomboids, and your erector spinae, and of course your glutes, because this is a hip hinge movement, so your hips are going to be targeted, specifically being your glute muscles, and then your legs. Your hamstrings are going to get the biggest burn, but you will also be burning and working out your quads and your calves. So those are the muscles. Let's talk about the how, all right? We want to make sure that you're doing this right. Like I said, I really think that everyone should work with a certified kettlebell coach. I am certified through American Kettlebell Association as well as RKC, and I really hone in on making sure that form is perfect. If you learn bad form with low weights, you're going to carry that form over into your heavier weights, and that's where you set yourself up for injury. So just make sure you're starting with the basics and that you're practicing and that you're learning. So if you don't have a kettlebell coach to talk to, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help. Make sure that you're watching tutorials, listening to podcasts like this, and then also filming yourself. I cannot stress the importance of filming yourself because you're able to check your form. Sometimes what we think we're doing is not what we're actually doing. So by filming yourself, setting up the camera, and then watching that replay, you might be able to see, oh, I'm not really powering through my hips like I'm supposed to, or I'm pulling through my shoulders versus pushing through with my legs, and you'll be able to fix those mistakes. So I think then rule number 2, because rule number 1 is talk to a kettlebell coach. Rule number 2, film yourself as often as you can. All right, let's break this down. Number 1, you're always wanting to start with an athletic stance with the kettlebell about 1 to 2 feet out in front of you and your feet hip to shoulder width apart. Again, this goes back to, yes, if you're using a light kettlebell, it's easy. You can pick it up. You can kind of just swing it back and forth to get the momentum going so that you can then knock out your reps of swings. However, if you start that habit with light weights, you're going to carry that habit with heavy weights and you're not going to learn that proper start-stop position. So always, whether you are using a 10-pound kettlebell, which for swings is not very much, or a 70-pound kettlebell, treat it the same. I cannot stress that enough. That is my number 1 rule when it comes to training students and clients one-on-one. So you want to start in what's called an athletic stance. That kettlebell is out in front of you. You're making a triangle with the top of the kettlebell and your feet. You want to have your knees slightly bent, and from there you're going to bend over so that your hands are on the kettlebell, and you're looking like a football player on the line of scrimmage, right? And so then you're going to initiate the swing. We're going to go back into talking about football with a powerful hike where you're going to keep your spine straight, your shoulders pulled back, and that also includes your neck straight as well. I know I kind of skipped that. So when I say a straight spine, I mean also from the top of your head all the way down your back to your butt should remain in a nice straight neutral position. Don't tuck your chin in there. And then for the actual hike back, you're going to hike it down into your crotch, which I know sounds so weird, but make sure that if your shoulders are pulled back, that's actually a very easy position to get into. And that should be at the bottom of every single swing. It should not be down by your knees. So make sure that you're bringing your shoulder blades back and down. This is called the pack position. And if you find when you're looking at video replay of yourself that your kettlebell is down by your knees or your hands are down by your knees, chances are your shoulder blades are not pulled back. And if they're in that forward position, it makes your range longer, if that makes sense. And then so once we're in that hiked back position, all that's left to do is to drive the kettlebell up. You're going to push your feet down into the ground, powerfully drive your hips forward as you come to a standing position, again keeping your back straight and your shoulder blades pulled back. At the top of your kettlebell swing, you should look as if you're in a standing plank position. Your hands out in front of you around your chest, and then your body straight from the top of your head all the way down to your heels. I like to tell somebody to initiate that swing from the bottom of your swing to come up. Think about someone slapping you on your booty and you're going, oh my goodness, right? And you're reacting to it and standing up really fast and forcefully. That's what you want to do. You'd want to make sure that you're not driving through your shoulders and just swinging it up. The only thing that your shoulders are there for, or your arms, is to guide the kettlebell where you want it to go as it hits the top of the swing, which should be about belly button to chest height, depending on the weight that you're using. Obviously, if you're going really heavy or you're doing double kettlebell swings, it's not going to go as high as if you're doing like a 35 to a 45 pound kettlebell, which might come up to your nipple height. And then once the kettlebell comes to the height that you want, or the height that you can get it to, you're then going to use your arms to throw the kettlebell back down to initiate that hip drive back down to that starting position so that you can come right back up. So that's the breakdown. You're going to repeat that over and over and over and over again. That's what a swing is. But here are the things that you want to make sure that you don't do. Number one, do not squat. I don't see this as much as a problem anymore, but when I got started in kettlebells over 10 years ago, kettlebells were still very, very new to the market, and people did not understand the idea of a hip drive versus a squat. And I would even go, when I was first certified, I remember I went to a vacation down in Florida, and the gym of the hotel had kettlebells, and I started doing kettlebell swings. And the guy that was working there, who was quote unquote a trainer, came up to me and was like, ma'am, that's awesome that you're using these kettlebells, but you're not doing the swings correctly. Make sure that you're coming down into a squat and then using your arms to pull the kettlebell back up. And I just put my head down and like, no. And I didn't want, because obviously he was working, I just said, thank you for your advice. And I kept doing me. I didn't want to flex and be like, well, actually, but now I think I would have had the confidence that I probably would correct him. But back then I kept my mouth closed. But bottom line, you want to make sure that your knees are soft as you're hinging back down, but you're not bending them into a squat. So if you've ever done something like a good morning before, it's essentially performing a powerful good morning, right? You're bowing down and then you're using those hips to come back up. Also, it's the same thing as doing a deadlift, which is oftentimes you need to make sure you have a great deadlift before you start in with swings. I like to call a swing a plyometric deadlift, right? They're all the same movements, good morning, deadlifts, and swings. It's just different upon where the weight is placed versus your center of gravity, depending on how your body moves that. You guys, sorry, the yard people are out back. If you guys can hear that, I really, really apologize. All right, so what not to do. Number 2, do not rock on your feet. Make sure to keep your feet planted on the ground with your weight evenly distributed throughout them. So a lot of times when, 15 years ago when I first started doing deadlifts, I remember somebody teaching me to bring your toes up off the ground a little bit so that you would lean back into your heels. And you don't want to do that, right? We now know that you want to make sure that your whole foot is maintaining contact to the ground, but you do at the bottom of your swing, just like at the bottom of a deadlift, want to lean back slightly because you want your hips, instead of being vertically over your heels, to go back a little bit, because that is what a hip hinge is. One of the things that I do when I'm working with a client in my studio is I'll have them stand about 10 inches away from the wall, and then tell them to hip hinge and make their butt tap the wall. If they can do that easily, then I'll have them step a little bit more forward. But that kind of helps to teach that idea of pushing the hips back and leaning back into your heels without picking your feet up off the ground at any point. Next, number 3, let your arms relax. If your arms are completely stiff when you're doing a swing, especially up at the top of your swing, that could definitely pull yourself forward and take yourself out of a packed shoulder position. You want to make sure that your shoulders remain locked and loaded so that they're pulled back, they're pulled down, your lats are engaged. And if you have completely straight arms, you're at a more likely position for that kettlebell to pull you forward, which one will bring you up onto your toes. So if you find that you're going forward on your toes at the top of your swing, that's probably what's going on. Or it'll just help pull you forward in general, and your shoulders are going to get out of that packed position. So relax your arms. You don't want them bent at 90, but you also don't want them locked out. Just let them there to help drive the kettlebell in the direction that you want to go in, and then able to push it back down. And again, if your arms are completely straight, you're going to have a harder time giving power to pushing the kettlebell back down to get back into the bottom of your hip hinge. So a couple of cues to look for. Again, take some video images and then go back over these bullet points and say, am I doing this? Am I doing this? Am I squatting? Am I rocking on my feet? Are my arms completely locked out? And then you now know how to fix it. So let's talk about American swings versus, Russian swings. This, I feel like, is the old debate, kind of like runners versus cyclists. Like, you're never going to see eye to eye. Runners hate bikers, bikers hate runners, and Russian kettlebell followers hate CrossFitters for doing American swings. And I used to kind of be in that camp as well. I love CrossFit. I follow CrossFit. I'm still trying to decide if I want to try to do some of these open workouts. I just don't know when I'm going to fit it in. But whenever I would see people doing American swings, I'd go, oh my gosh, as someone who is Russian kettlebell certified. But when you open up your mind and then start to ask the questions like, why? Then you kind of start to see, okay, maybe this isn't such a terrible movement at all. It's just a different movement. Just like there's different variations of deadlifts, right? There's sumo deadlifts, there's conventional deadlifts, there's single leg deadlifts. Same thing goes with swings. There's different variations to it, and that's okay. But in case you're like, I don't understand, what is the difference? I've never heard of this. The most obvious difference is where you take the kettlebell. For a Russian swing, we're bringing the kettlebell, like I mentioned before, from about belly button to chest height. But for an American swing, you're actually taking the kettlebell all the way to full extension over your head. Now, the issue that a lot of people have with an American swing is that it can be really dangerous on your shoulders because you're taking it to an upper head position, and you're really having to rely on your shoulder mobility as well as shoulder strength to be able to stop the kettlebell at the appropriate place versus letting it go to overextension at the top and putting yourself at risk of injury. But really, when you think about it, American swings are more dangerous, okay? I will say that. You do need to make sure that you have a baseline, that you have the strength, that you have the mobility, but it really is more of a two-handed snatch. Or if you've ever heard of the exercise ground to overhead, where you're taking a plate or a dumbbell or a kettlebell, you're tapping it between your feet, you're driving it straight through the body as if it's on an elevator, and you're taking it all the way up overhead. It's the same thing. It's just using that hip hinge to drive it through as well. So Russian swings are more common, and they're supposed to be fast. They're supposed to be high rep. They're supposed to be explosive with an emphasis on the posterior chain, and supposed to be more cardiovascular. Whereas American swings are basically, like I said, a two-handed snatch or a ground to overhead, and it's working the full body. It's not necessarily focusing just on the posterior chain. It's also working on shoulder mobility. You can also go a little bit heavier. The movement's going to be a little bit slower because it takes more time to go through that full range of motion. So it's probably going to be less reps. You're also going to have to do less weight. You're going to have to use less weight because, again, you're having to drive it from the hip hinge all the way overhead versus using just your hips to drive it to your chest height, where you'll be able to go heavier if you are doing the Russian swing. So which one's best? You should absolutely 100% start with the Russian swing to help you learn form, learn technique, master it, as well as with the Russian swing, that's your gateway into kettlebell training. Once you've mastered your swing and you feel comfortable with it, from there you can start implementing cleans, you can start learning snatches, you can start learning compound movements like a clean to a press, straight into a snatch, going more into complex compound movements. And then obviously one of those other options would be an American swing. So definitely start with the Russian swing first. I'm not going to say, like, I'm definitely, in all the years that I've been as a trainer, I've been able to grow, and I'm not going to say Russian swings are better than American swings. They're just different. It's just a different exercise. So just make sure that you're confident with one before you jump into another one, and absolutely make sure that you talk to somebody or have somebody who is knowledgeable in the movement watch you as you work on both of them. And then last but certainly not least, when it comes to kettlebells, I can't talk about all this kettlebell swing stuff and then not give you a workout, right? So this is actually a workout that I did this past week with my group in Fit Women's Weekly Live. They loved it. I loved it. It was a lot harder than I expected it to be, and now I'm excited to share it with you. If you do give it a shot, please let me know. Tag me over on Instagram. Take a sweaty selfie. Film yourself doing a couple of the reps, whatever it is, but let me know how it goes. So here's the movement. It's every 2 minutes for 10 rounds, so a 20-minute workout, which means, you guys, you're going to burn up to about 400 calories, right? We're tying this all together. And so for 10 rounds, every 2 minutes, you're going to do 5 burpees, 10 alternating bent over rows, tossing it from one hand to the other. And then whatever is left of the 2 minutes, you're going to knock out as many swings as possible. Generally, you'll have about a minute 5 to a minute 10 to knock out the swings once you've completed the burpees and the rows. And you really want to try not to put the kettlebell down. If you need to start alternating between single hand swings and two-handed swings, you can absolutely do that. But then once the 2 minutes is over, there is no rest. It's going to start right back into another 2 minutes. So your buzzer's going to go off and you're going to jump right back into your 5 burpees and your 10 alternating power rows, and then back into your swings. I think I got around 430 something swings. I don't know. I'll look in my book and I'll make sure to write my score down on the video. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see my score. And if you're listening to this on the podcast, whatever player it is, I'll try to remember to put my score down below and you guys can try to beat it. But it was a good one. It was super sweaty by the end. It felt good. And it's a great workout where you don't have to go really heavy. So I enjoyed doing this on Friday when my body's kind of fatigued. I'm getting ready to look forward to a rest day. And so I use a 35-pound kettlebell for this, but you use what feels best for you. And then I guess the last thing that I want to really stress is people always ask me, what weight of kettlebell should I start with when it comes to kettlebell swings? Just like any form of kettlebell, and I've talked about this on past episodes as well as even on social media, that if you use a kettlebell that is too light, it could be just as bad for your form as going too heavy, because you're able to manipulate it a little bit more versus really feeling the weight of the kettlebell and having it move through its natural range, so to speak. You want to think of the kettlebell swing as like a pendulum. And so you want to make sure that you're not just using a 10-pound kettlebell, that you're just using your hands to swing it back and forth. You're not going to do very much with that. So generally, of course, everyone's starting at their own place, and that's okay. But I would recommend starting with a 35-pound kettlebell, which is also 16 kilograms, to start swings, and then you can always build up from there. But remember, focus on a proper start-stop position. Do not just pick up the kettlebell, start swinging your hips back and forth to build the momentum moving of that kettlebell, and then start your swings. Start it about a foot to a foot and a half out in front of you in that start-stop position. Hike it back, swing, and then you should end your kettlebell swing with the kettlebell going right back where it started, so that you are in that start-stop position again. I know, you guys, that this episode was way different than previous episodes. This is very much more of a detailed tutorial episode on exercise form, but if you like it, let me know. And if there's a particular exercise that you would like to have broken down so that you can make sure you're doing it properly, let me know that as well. We could always put it in for future episodes. And if you have any questions or topics, it doesn't have to be exercise related. It could be anything under the sun: fitness, news, lifestyle, marriage, business, and you would like me to cover it here, then slide into my DMs. Make sure that you follow me over on Instagram, Kendall Boyle Fitness. That is absolutely where I am most active. Or you can email me, kendall@fitwomensweekly.com. And I would love to hang out with you guys more often. This podcast is my baby. I love chit-chatting with you guys. I feel like this is us having coffee talk and it's me sharing my passion. I love talking kettlebell form. Like that is just, I can get going. Now I kind of feel like, hey, let's just jump into talking about proper form for the clean and the snatch. But don't worry, I won't do that. But if you would like to hang out more, get more one-on-one training, I currently am taking private clients, so you can always reach out and I can give you more information on that. Or try out what it's like to be part of an amazing strength community for women where I go live 2 times every single day. 2 hours every day I am live with hour-long workouts, 2 30-minute workouts, answering questions, giving suggestions, giving modifications, and you can find out more about that at fitwomensweekly.com, and you can try Fit Women's Weekly Live for free for 2 full weeks. And I guess I can announce this now. We have just launched a brand new newsletter, the Fit Finisher newsletter, which is going to be going out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Every Monday, I'll be sharing a free 5-minute workout and video included in that. Every Wednesday, it is show notes and links to the podcast. And every Friday, I'll be doing invites, whether that is to a cooking live demo or a workout or a Q&A, as well as sharing news in the fitness world, sharing any blog posts that have been posted, and sharing current things that I'm into, whether that's new purchases or fitness gadgets, whatever the case may be. So I'm really excited. If you would like to be included in the Fit Finisher, make sure, again, head over to fitwomensweekly.com. If you guys haven't figured it out, basically everything is over at the hub, fitwomensweekly.com. Make sure that you like this episode, you subscribe, and if you are able to, either leave a comment or leave a review. Go swing some kettlebells. If you have questions about your kettlebell form, you have filmed yourself, you have looked at it, but just something still doesn't feel right or you're not completely confident in how it looks, then film it, post it up on social media, or you can even send it to me in a DM on Instagram, and I would be happy to look at it and give a couple of pointers. Love to do that. Just make sure to tag me and say, hey, at Kendall Boyle Fitness, how does this look? And I will give you some tips and cues. All right, you guys, that's what I got going on today. I am off to go film a Fit Women's Weekly Live workout, actually. We've got about 30 minutes before I have to set up to get that done. And then I got some more filming to do. And it's also tax season, so I got to take some stuff to my accountant today. Not fun. All right, you guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I will talk to you soon.